best of my knowledge, is either 3 or 4 years, when I was 3 or 4 years old. Uh, that's something you better ask my mother rather than me, because she could probably tell you more accurately. I thought we went there in 30 or 31, since I was born in 27. We've been about in there, but she can tell you exactly.
Is the house you were born in still exist?
No idea. I can't remember. I was born on Ward Street or Hamilton Street. We lived in both of them. I was born in one and we moved to the other. I don't know which was which.
Remember when you moved from the first one to the second one? Or
No, I don't know. There were two addresses. That's all I remember. One was they were both in South Ottumwa. One was Ward Street and the other Hamilton Street. That's something else Mom can tell you.
What grade were you in when you played your imaginary violin?
Oh, I don't know. Probably second or third grade or something like that, I imagine.
Was that at school?
No, it was a church thing. That's what made it even more embarrassing, was they had little church programs. This might have been at a holiday program, Easter or Christmas or something, where they had the kids come out and do their little skits and numbers that they do. I stayed on for a little extra performance.
Do you remember what else you did in that?
No, I don't. I imagine I was with a group, either a few or quite a few, singing or doing a little recitation or something. They were great for having maybe your Sunday school class come out and do a recitation or sing a little song or something. That's probably what triggered it. I decided I hadn't had enough action on the stage yet, so.
What other church activities did you have as a child?
Oh, I did the typical things. As you advanced through the classes, you had a little group. Your class would have parties, or then the youth groups, which they were very conscious of. Junior high and high school tried to keep you interested in church and church activities through your youth church groups. And I can't think of. I remember when we were in junior high, I think about in that age, we had a man, Sunday school teacher, and we liked him. He was one of the local businessmen down there. And he'd occasionally take us out for picnics or do things like that. I don't know as we learned a whole lot as far as religious things are concerned. We liked him. I think he was just trying to keep us from wrecking the place or something. I don't know. It's typical of that age. A lot of times our Sunday school class would be out in his car. The church is rather small. You've seen it. It's the Methodist church there in Keota, where we went to. And it's pretty close to...
West side?
Yeah, it's kind of borderline west side, east side. It's on the north side of Main Street, and where the old, if you ever saw where the old high school was, they may even have it torn down now. Where the whole thing was, it was grade school through high school. Now they have a new elementary and a new high school. But where the old one was, not too far from the library. You know where the library is, so it wouldn't be too far from there.
Okay.
All right, the Methodist church is up. It was just up the street from high school. And now I've lost the thought of my story here. We were just telling about the youth activities and that sort of thing. I suppose through high school and stayed together pretty well. So I guess we sang in a group that happened that the minister's sons, and one of them was one of my best friends, the Browns, Bob and Eddie Brown. Eddie was the oldest one, and then Bob Brown, John Freshwaters, And Eddie and myself had a quartet, and we sang a lot for church and for other things.
About what age?
High school, most of the way through high school.
What part did you sing?
As tenor. Most of us didn't have really, I don't think there was a true bass in the bunch. Probably Eddie, since he was oldest, probably had a little, wait a minute. Either Ed or Bob would sing a little lower part. A lot of the stuff we did was in unison. We didn't really split up into the typical barbershop 4-part harmony. We do some harmonizing, but probably 2-part, very simple harmonies on it. We just sang for enjoyment. I don't think we were destined for stardom as the quartet.
Fill the void. Huh? How much did you and Chance charge for cutting lawns?
Depend on the size of the lawn. In those days, a standard lawn could be 25 cents, was about as low as you could charge anybody. And $1 lawn would be a huge lawn, or else you had somebody that's pretty well to do. Most of the time, 25 to 50 cents would be around in there to cover most of the lawns you cut.
Did that include also trim?
They didn't go in quite so much for trimming. Now, if they wanted to spatialize, and you either used a shovel, you didn't have the electric little trimmers you ran along the sidewalk or the curb. They might have had things similar, hand pushed or something. Most of the time, that was just a straight lawn mowing job. If you wanted to do trimming, why, that was going to be extra, of course. And most people didn't ask for it. They were just very happy to have their lawns cut and look nice. You tried to do what you could. But I remember Chance at home, where he lived with his mother there, my grandmother. He always went along with a shovel and always had his cut out all along the sidewalk. And he had them trimmed back. He had always kept his lawn very, very nice out in front.
Now, did you guys work in such a way that somebody cut the lawn while the other one was raking up the grass?
We didn't rake up. You just, in those days, right there, there might be a few people that were very particular, and they usually did their own, that would have a grass catcher. About everything was a hand mower, push mower. I can't remember, unless it was some spatial deal where they had a tractor pulling it for a big job, like at the park or something like that. Most of the time, any mowing was done with a hand push mower. I don't remember the first time I saw a gas engine power mower being used. So you just left the clippings. You didn't rake them up. We each had a mower, and one of us would start one place in the yard and the other in the other one, and we just go about our business mowing. When we finished, we'd go to the next one if we needed to, if we had another. I don't remember any lawn that we had where we actually tried to rake up or catch the clippings or anything.
Did you guys divide up the money 50-50?
Yes, we did. I had some lawns of my own. He had some lawns of his own. And I guess we just decided we just go together and do them together. And it lasted a year or two. He probably still did some lawns on his own later on, and maybe I did. Maybe I gravitated into some other things. I was about, anywhere from 10 to 12 years old when I started out with him, and probably closer to 12. And then later on, I got in helping other things to make money. It always was a prime importance to a kid my age, and especially in those times, since my folks didn't have a lot of money, and anything I could do to earn something so I wouldn't have to get a nickel or a dime from them for something. If I could earn a few pennies or a dollar or something, I just helped out that much more. So I was always looking for something to do.
You were using your dad's lawnmower, though?
It was the parents' lawnmower, yes. Of course, from the time I started cutting lawns, it's automatic that I did our lawn at home. I don't think I ever remember Dad doing the lawn from the time that I became old enough to do it. Now, maybe after I left home, that he did it. But and then he, not too long after that, started developing heart trouble and had to fight that, so he never did it either. After that, he hired somebody to do it, or Chance did it a lot. He paid Chance to come up and do it later on.
What grade were you in when you first started playing trumpet?
5th grade. 10 years old. Thought I was going to play drum because that's all I'd ever watched when they used to have those Saturday night concerts downtown. They'd pull a bandstand on wheels and they'd pull that up to different locations in the main street downtown in Kyoto, and the band would play a concert. My parents said that's the most surprising thing in the world because all I ever watched was the drums. I was just fascinated with them. And so they went up to meet with the director, kind of a short interview to find out what I wanted to play, and they said, "What do you want to play?" And I said, "Trumpet." And Mom said she's really surprised.
Did you buy your first trumpet or did you rent one?
We bought it. They didn't go in for that for some reason or other. That gets started later. Now maybe they had plans like that, or maybe you could buy it on time or something. Most kids in those days, and this of course would have been in 1937, if you were going to commit yourself to having something like that, you bought it. They didn't have a trial rental plan. You just did it or you didn't do it. So I had a inexpensive trumpet, but I suspect it was enough to tie the folks down, even though it was fairly inexpensive. But it was good enough to get me started on it.
It was a trumpet, not a cornet?
I think my first one was a trumpet. Then I went to, later on, I think about ninth grade year, I upgraded it, and it was the one that Norma has had. I don't know what's happened to it since. In fact, I may have sold it for her. I think probably I did, one time or another. But I played on it, and then when I got out of high school, went to service, I had it for a while, I think. I had Mom send it to me. I don't know what happened. There's some little interim in there that I had some kind of trumpet. Then I played service trumpets, and I sent it back, and she played it quite a bit through high school. And then when I went to college, I got another trumpet, the one that you played, that I presently own. I got that in 1947, and I've had it ever since then. I had a chance to pick up the real fine King cornet that you played on some later on, so that I have both those now. But I had a pretty good that still put out about as good a tone as I think I've ever. It was a kind of a cross between a trumpet. They put out for a couple of years that particular horn, and it was a cross between a cornet and a trumpet. It had almost the length of a trumpet, a little shorter, but it had the good mellow cornet tone. And I thought it was one of the best instruments they ever put out. I think I sold it to a kid in Pocahontas, really.
Did you ever take lessons?
The lessons were such that they started in the elementary school. That's what the director did. You might go in once a week or something and have a lesson from him, and he'd try to move you along. And then after I got into what was called the band, they didn't have 3 or 4 different bands at the time. When I was in 6th grade or something, I was in the high school band. I did marching and things like that. After about 1 year, I made it into the band. And from there on, I don't remember having too many lessons. You played a lot. Maybe they try to form you into small groups, and he'd be listening to you. But as formal lessons, I don't think I had many, and I needed them. Really, till I started in as a music major in college, did I get into formal lessons again. That's about the end of it. It was about the first year I got started.
Were you the better one at the time? Did you have other kids that you were better player than them?
There were several of us started. Dropout rate was fairly good. it's like every elementary band or group of people that start. Quite a few of them have interest, and it gets to be kind of a in thing to do because your buddies are doing it. It's time to start, and I stuck with it. I was one of the ones in my class that did. There were some girls that stayed with it. As far as the trumpet players, I was trying to think if any of them that started out at the same time. A couple of them moved. There was one kid that was pretty good that was with me. He and I were about equal at the time, and his dad was a minister in another church named Hugh York. And he moved. His dad had called to another ministry or something, so I think that was probably about 6th or 7th grade, but I'd made it into the band. I think I was seated ahead of him at the time. And by the time I was in 8th grade, I was near the top of the section for, not that the competition was that stiff, but I was near the top of the section in 8th and 9th grade in the high school band. And from let's see, my 9th grade year, there was a kid that was a senior. I think, frankly, I probably played better than he did, but since it was a little embarrassing since he was a senior and I was a freshman, I never too much made of it. I just sat behind him all the way through that year, and we didn't do much challenging or anything. It was strictly a case where the director listened to you and he knew about what you were doing, and if you were obviously that much better, there'd probably be some switches made, but as long as there wasn't that much difference in you, he probably wasn't going to say too much. Try to keep peace in the family. He just wanted a band that got along the best they could and played the best they could.
What did your folks think? Taking comfort of?
Well, they were all for it. My mother, of course, has always liked music, and we'd done a lot of singing. And, we had a piano. She played some. She probably played as well as most people around there at that time. And she wasn't a professional or anything like that. She strictly had learned piano. We enjoyed music, enjoyed listening to it. So she was happy about it. I suppose they just figured it was a nice activity for me. I didn't think they ever thought that I would go on and do anything with it or become a teacher of music. I don't know what they thought I was going to be. Maybe they thought I was going to be another John Dillinger or something. I don't know at the time. I wasn't that bad a kid. I was ornery and all that sort of thing. But they were happy to have me in music. It was a nice activity. As I told a lot of other people, it's been a good door opener for a lot of things, I think, when you're in something.
Now, you played for funerals during World War II.
Generally, it was the graveside ceremony. The funeral itself, I probably didn't attend. Excuse me. When I was about in 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, around in there, maybe just a little. Let's see, this would have been. World War II started when I was a freshman in high school. So this has been more like my late freshman, sophomore, junior, and even senior years in high school. The boys that were killed in service, they'd bring them back and have a ceremony. And maybe they would have had it in the church before, but generally somebody would send word up through the school or something to ask Bob if he could play for the funeral or for the graveside ceremonies. It was always taps. You went to near the grave, and while they were doing their final bit, and you played right before, let's see, firing squad would fire, and then you'd play the taps. So that was the extent of my participation in that, and it wasn't an enjoyable experience, but I was always glad to help out wherever I could with the thing.
And you weren't paid for that?
One fella, his son was a Navy Air Corps pilot. He gave me $2, I think, or something at the time. He gave it to my dad and had my dad give it to me. He didn't give it directly to me, and said he really appreciated having me do that. That was the only time I had ever received anything, and I didn't expect anything. That was a surprise when he did it. I appreciated it, but nobody ever considered. It's a little different. I don't know what the philosophy of the attitude was. There's more money floating around right now, all kinds of it, and yet there are so many people don't want to do anything unless they get paid for every little whipstitch they do. But at that time, when there wasn't any money, and money would have meant something to somebody, you didn't consider doing things for money as much. You did it to help out, and you didn't worry about, let's see, am I going to make some money out of doing this or not? That didn't bother you so much. It was nice to have it, guys, yes, but I didn't play that many. I'm not trying to make it sound like I played 25 or 30 of those. I probably played 5 or 6, something like that.
You played for Roger's brother.
I can't remember whether I did or not. I might have. He would have been killed about my junior or senior year in high school, probably, and it's possible I did. I can remember that the first 2 servicemen killed, I played for both them. And one of them was the one I was telling you about that gave me the $2. It was Ray Callister. He ran a beer parlor uptown. His Chick, they called him Chick Callister, and his son Raymond was killed. And I think George Dupley and his mother had been a paper customer when I was delivering the evening Tribune, Des Moines Tribune, and she was a widow, and that was her oldest son, and he was killed. And I think he was also a pilot in training, had an accident. And without being callous, I don't really remember exactly, except those 2 fellows who I had played for. I might have played for Russell Richardson. I don't know that I did or not. I wouldn't swear to it that I did.
Was your dad there?
No, generally not, no. He would have been working, unless he was directly involved or asked to be on the firing squad or something like that, which he could have been. Probably he wasn't. I'd guess that he was more than he was. They'd come up to school and get me, or come up, as I said, sent word, and I'd get out of school about the time that they were going to be out there, and somebody might come by and take me out in the car, or maybe I'd just walk along. Maybe they were marching or something like that, if they had a contingent to go out and do it. And I'd walk along and get out there.
When did you first start delivering the Tribune?
I don't really remember. I had delivered the Cedar Rapids Gazette when I was young, a year or so before that, and then I went to the Tribune. I have an idea it was probably 6th or 7th grade or something like that, I imagine, in that age category, 12, 13 years old.
Until when?
I was about a sophomore in high school when I gave up the route, I think. Somebody else. I tried it during my freshman year because we still need to get the money the best we could, but I was involved in athletics, and I was having to get substitutes and do things like that, and so I think I had to finally give it up about it.
You never delivered in the morning?
No. They had only one morning route. The evening paper was the popular paper, surprisingly enough. We had 3 or 4 different carriers delivering the evening paper, and one carrier delivered the morning paper. And, now it's ironic that the evening paper there is folded. It doesn't even exist now, and it's the morning paper that's the important one.
That may say something about lifestyle change too.
Yeah. Well, people went to work fairly early in the morning, and they worked 9, 10-hour days most of the time. It wasn't 6, 7, and 8 hours. Most people worked from like 7 in the morning till 6 at night with maybe something off for lunch. I guess that doesn't add up to 10, or does it? Whatever. I remember my dad getting home at between 6:15 and 6:30 at night most of the time when he worked at this store. And But they did take an hour for lunch. Most of them did. And in a small town that way, I still remember my dad coming home for lunch. And,
You came home for lunch at school?
yes, during different times, what I felt like doing. They didn't have a cafeteria program at the school in Kyoto, and you either carried your lunch or you came home and ate lunch. And everybody took an hour, and most of the time during elementary, I think I came home and ate lunch. Mom would fix something, and walked back to school. You usually go home and gulp down your lunch because you always had a lot of playing to do. You want to get back and have a marble game or something, or play touch or play football or whatever you're going to do. And then I got to carrying it in high school. Some I just like to stay up there and shoot the bull with the guys, or we could go out and shoot baskets. That's one thing they'd let you do is during the winter you'd be out or playing softball or doing something else. So everything was centered around fun if you could do it.
So you went to the one school in Kyoto for the beginning all through high school.
Yeah, it was all inclusive, first grade through 12th grade, all in the same building. You just kept moving from room to room. Finally got down to the one end of it, which was the high school part of it on the upper floor. There was another school in town, and that was the St. Mary's school. That's a Catholic school. And it ran through 8th grade, and then all the kids, any of them that wanted to go on to high school, and we all combined at the high school level from 9th grade on.
Now, when did you start playing football in high school?
9th grade.
And what position did you play?
Oh, I was such a little wimp at the time, such a little guy. I think I weighed 102 pounds soaking wet when I was in 9th grade. And so then, surprisingly, there were about 3 or 4 or 5 of us that were all about the same size. And we'd get out and he'd use us for cannon fodder, but he was pretty kind, really. You get to looking back. And when he got into the serious business of trying to scrimmage, he'd send us down at the other end of the field and let us play. Although it was like having the best of both worlds, he might have enough that we could go down and play football against each other and clear away from what was going on. We had pads and helmets and everything, which you never had when you were smaller. And you could play tackle football and choose up sides and do all that sort of thing, and that gave us experience. We went through all the drills and the fundamentals and all that sort of thing, but he might have us come back and try to catch punts and do that sort of thing and have them practice scrimmaging, but the guys were usually pretty kind. They didn't try to kill us, which they could have done, the older guys, and they just put up with us more or less.
When did you start putting some weight on then?
Oh, I advanced.
Gradually?
Oh, yeah, pretty normal growth pattern. I went from 102 pounds as a 9th grader. You got to remember that we didn't have kindergarten then, and most of us started in 1st grade when we should have probably been starting in kindergarten. I was 17 a month before I graduated from high school, so I was pretty immature, really. I should have been really a 8th grader when I was a 9th grader, and then because when I graduated from high school, I was 155 pounds. Then I was one of the larger ones as far as weight. I wasn't any taller than any, but I was just as tall as most of them. We had a couple guys over 6 feet, but I was just under 6 feet, and I was probably as tall as most of the guys on the athletic teams. But I went through the service, and I get out of the service, and I still only weighed 158 pounds at that time, and I was 19 years old. In fairly good shape, and then I got out and lived the good life for about 3 or 4 months after I got out of the service, and just overate like crazy, and got real flabby and out of shape, and I got up in the 190s right then. And then during college, was 170s and 80s, somewhere around in there, and then I got out, and I've had a weight problem ever since then. Huge weight problem, but I've always had to battle a bulge.
What other school activities did you participate in?
You mean high school, that would probably be most of it. Always in on what they had at that time called the clamatory contests, but they're speech contests now, I think we call them. I usually participated in those, and which might be a real surprise to you. I usually entered on the humorous side of the thing for some reason or other. My folks wanted me to get in because they thought I could do a good job. That's one thing Mom tried to get me to do, was to get in on the oratorical part. She thought I could be philosophizing real well there, memorizing. What they did was memorize these things and then present them. It was your matter of presentation. And I said I wasn't going to be a 13, 14-year-old kid trying to get up there. And at that time, that's what I told her, that I wasn't going to be up there trying to tell them how to cure all the world's troubles. I'd rather make them laugh if I could. I guess she thought she might as well give up because that's what I was going to do anyway. That and they had plays, high school plays. I was in on the junior and senior high school play, did that. Sang whenever they had vocal things. I usually was in on the vocal part of it. Athletics, band, just about anything that went on at the high school. In a small school that way, when you had 20-some in your class, why, if you had any interest or wanted to do and had some a small amount of talent, why, you were probably going to get called on to do quite a few things.
What'd you do in the summer between school years?
If you're talking from junior high on, worked as much as I could, but we got a lot of play. I don't want to make it sound like somebody had me behind the plow the whole time I was in junior and senior high school. If there weren't jobs to do, and you had men around to do them, and the jobs weren't that plentiful for men, so that if they had a choice between 13, 14-year-old young man and a man to do the job, they weren't going to hesitate very long which one to take. But we played a lot of ball. It happened that there were a few guys my age and a little older, and some a little younger, that we'd go down and play a lot of softball during the summer. We didn't have a swimming pool then. We did go down and take swimming lessons. They tried to teach us to swim, and a couple of the mothers took us down to YMCA of Washington, and we spent a summer or two going down there learning how to swim. And we did the various activities. Went out when we learned to swim. We'd go out the pond, and there was one now where the Lagos Acres golf course is. That was a pond. We used to go out and swim in that some. And usual things that boys do. It was never in mixed activities particularly. It was all boys doing this together. And we were seasonal in the summer. We played softball and go to watch the softball games or go swimming or fishing. I did a lot of fishing when I was I liked to fish in the creek out there, and my folks both liked to fish, and on the weekends once in a while on Sunday. Of course, Dad worked 6 days a week, so Sundays we might go down and have Mom would pack up a picnic lunch, and we'd go spend the whole day fishing some creek or something. Usually we took Grandma and Chance along and just made kind of a family outing. They're pretty much normal activities. Got into high school, and the war had started, and they weren't able to get a bunch of men to do things. And I went to work on the section gang, which was it was a very tough job, but probably I earned about as good a money there as I could have any place. I think I went to when I was about a sophomore. I wasn't too big, but sophomore, junior, and senior years, like this during the summers, I worked on the section out.
Doing what?
What they call a Gandhi dancer. Section gang is you do a lot of lining track and pulling out old ties under the track and putting new ones in and shoveling gravel. And I dug a lot of post holes because you mended fence because it was the railroad's property along there. So you had to dig the holes and string fence, repair that, and a lot of lifting and tugging and pulling. I think it probably hardened up a lot of muscles, and didn't hurt me any. I look back on it now, I'd sure hate to have a son of mine go through it in some respects, because it's pretty tough work, and good possibility of straining a few things there, and getting some hernias and all that sort of thing out of it. But it worked out all right. It didn't hurt me any.
Remember what you got paid?
At one time, the only reason I can answer that is that I remember one time I got paid this money for sleeping, and that stuck in my memory. That there was a washout, and there were some floods up around Oskaloosa, and we had to go up there, and I must have been making 60 cents an hour at the time, because you got time and a half if you had to stay out overnight or stay away from what your home base was, and that had been 90, and I always remembered I got 90 cents an hour for sleeping at the time. And that was pretty good money. 60 cents an hour wasn't too bad. I did some real tough, hard work about a little before that, going out on a farm, doing loose hay and doing that sort of thing, getting paid 30 cents an hour. That was pretty much the standard wage rate at the time.
What'd you do with the money?
Oh, usually saved it to a certain extent, bought clothes, tried to do that, and I suppose frittered it away like kids do, bought too much ice cream or malted milks and sandwiches and things that just spend it on the typical stuff that a teenager would.
Do you have any new folks?
Oh, occasionally. Now, at that particular time, when I was in high school, things had eased up for them a little bit. Mom had gone to work, and about my freshman year or something like that, and she had an income, and my dad had a fairly good job at the time. Things were going along pretty good, and so I didn't need to contribute.